All right, welcome back, everyone. And thanks to Elaine for moderating the last three sessions. Great info about Ohio's efforts in AAM. Our next session is a panel focused on research and development requirements and the policy along with those required for AAM viability. We hope attendees can identify future R&D projects and supply chain requirements to accelerate capabilities that will address these requirements. Moderating is Mr. James Sass Barilla, who is the Prime Division Chief at AFWorks. SAS oversees accelerating emerging dual-use technology markets by leveraging government resources for rapid and affordable fielding. SAS is a former U.S. Air Force fighter pilot and test pilot, having flown almost 3,000 hours in the F-15, F-117, F-22, F-16, and in 35 other airplanes. Thank you for joining us today. Sass, over to you to introduce the panelists.
Yeah, outstanding. Hey, thanks, Matt. Thank you to everybody who is dialing in. Man, I'm super excited to be here. Everybody keeps saying excited, but I'm super excited. Let me tell you why. I'm here in the Dayton, Ohio area, and I had a morning meeting out by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so when I was driving out to that meeting this morning, I got to drive by the Huffman Prairie flying field. And so if you're not familiar with Huffman Prairie, right, this is the big field just outside of Wright-Patterson, about 8 miles to the northeast of Dayton. And this is where the Wright brothers, over 100 years ago, really mastered the principles of controlled and powered flight, right, en route to really making the world's first practical airplane. And I can't help but think that we are in a very, very similar time right now, where I'm going to introduce you to some people who in a few years we may be looking back going, you know, we were right there on the cusp of history as well, as these people were also mastering the principles of controlled electronic powered flight en route to the world's first practical electronic airplanes. So I'm pretty excited to introduce you to the people on this panel. We'll start with Luke Fisher. He's here from Joby Aviation as representing government ops. Joby is a California-based venture-backed aerospace company, and they're developing an eVTOL, or electronic vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, which they intend to operate as a air taxi service. Next up, we've got ARLO, Cameron Guthrie. He's here from Beta Technologies, and he's overseeing their work with the Air Force, and he's been very involved with their work in Ohio. Beta is an American aircraft manufacturer and an electric startup based in Burlington, Vermont. They recently announced an agreement with the company Blade to secure 20 electric vertical aircraft. Next, we got Kevin Rustagi. You actually just heard from Kevin, so he's fortunate to be back-to-back here with the crowd. Director of Business Development from Lift Aircraft out in Austin, Texas, launching the world's first experiential entertainment electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that they call Hexa. They're actually going to participate in a use case demonstration here, right close to here in Hilliard, Ohio, along with the Ohio Federal Research Network, Jobs Ohio, Drive Ohio, Fly Ohio, and the Ohio UAS Center later this year in June. Next up, Damon Vanderlyn, and Damon may have to go here soon, but we'll also have Matt Croce. Damon's general manager and Matt's a product development pilot. They're both from Kitty Hawk, which is headquartered in Palo Alto, California, and they're building electric flight transportation solutions to free people from traffic. And finally, we've got Nathan Trail. He's the manager of state and local policy for urban air mobility at Hyundai Motor Group. And they're developing mobility solutions to create really a new future of mobility. And he's focused on state and local engagement. So, man, huge welcome to this panel. And I'm going to start off really with kind of a, tell us about yourself type question. We've heard already on this this impressive session that we've had since earlier today that, there's a lot of analysts that think here in the next 10 to 15 years, we're talking about $115 billion market, for the advanced air mobility sector. And so you all, really, all of you together are considered leaders in this space. So I'm going to ask you, right, give me 1 to 2 minutes, right, on how did you get here and how long have you been working on this technology? And I'll start, Luke, with you and Joby.
Yeah, first, great to be here. Great to see some familiar faces on the panel, and looking forward to some really exciting technology. So Joby Aviation has been involved in the electric aircraft business for about 10 years. And we've been very secretly and quietly, no pun intended, pioneering what we think is the next generation of civilian aircraft to bring quiet and affordable air taxi services to cities and regions across the world. And our vision is to improve people's daily lives by improving daily transportation. We have been testing for multiple years on various subscale and then full size aircraft. We're testing right now today. There's some great videos that we've been releasing over the previous months that have demonstrated our advancement in the industry. And we're really excited to open this up and share it more with the public as we move forward. And we've got some great partnerships too, which I know we'll get into here, but the Ohio area is really important to us, Springfield, Ohio as well, and excited to bring exciting stuff to the folks of Ohio. But really excited to engage with the panel here. So thanks.
Outstanding. Hey, thanks, Luke. Arlo, over to you and Beta, same type thing. Tell us about how you guys got here and how long have you been working on this technology?
Thanks, Sass. We also are excited to be here and excited to represent and appreciate what Ohio is doing. Really visionary work to enable what's happening in this new industry. Beta is a non-traditional aerospace company, I would say. We're kind of a power electronics company with an aviation problem. The founders were heavily involved in the electrification in other industries and very passionate about flying and aviation. And we started, how we got to where we are today about 3 years ago, is we started as a contractor supporting other electrification efforts in aviation. And we kind of earned our way one small contract at a time to design and build our first prototype, and then now to design and build our second prototype. The company is very focused on making on very simple and pragmatic design choices to close the business case. It's an economic proposition for our customers that we're relentlessly focused on minimizing drag and weight and fostering simplicity in everything we do so that we can get an aircraft to market that's simple, reliable, and doesn't require a lot of waivers in terms of flying in the airspace that exists today, but sort of future-proofed in the design so that as the regulatory and public acceptance environment allows, we can add things such as automation and urban ops and things of that nature.
Outstanding. Appreciate it, Arlo. Hey, Kevin, how about for yourself, right? And Lyft, quick chat on, again, how'd you get here and how long you've been working on it?
With Lyft Aircraft, I joined Lyft Aircraft a couple of years ago, and the company itself has been around since 2017. One of the things I did when I became a private pilot was I immediately took my friends flying. I just thought it was the most fun thing. And looking back at the friends who were brave enough to fly with me at 65 hours, I kudos to them. With Lyft Aircraft, I actually was flying a small plane near Austin, Texas, and kind of stumbled across the company. We were doing a little bit of testing at a small public airport northwest of the city. And with Lyft, the approach is really to start small and to iterate. So we, along with others, have done subscale prototypes. And the company very quickly moved in the first 9 months of existence into full-scale prototypes, and within a year and a half into manned flight. The reason I brought up flying friends, one of the big initial markets for Lyft Aircraft, is as an ultralight to provide that experience to allow the public, with public acceptance being such an important thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, allowing the public to fly. You don't need a license to fly an ultralight. And of course, the onus on safety and really, really, really understanding not only the aircraft and its systems, but also the user experience is super important to us. So we're starting out with a single seat ultralight aircraft. We're based in Austin, Texas, have done a ton of work with Ohio and will continue to do so. It's been really great to see them leading out front. So that's where we stand. We're in production now, and I'll pause there.
Outstanding. No, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Hey, I'm going to send over to Damon and perhaps to Matt as well. Yeah, tell us about you guys, please.
Yeah, so we have the perfect timing where I have to step out immediately. So I'm really just going to pass to Matt Croce to take the panel. I just want to say we're very excited to be here and very excited about the work going on in the state of Ohio, and we'll let Matt take it from here.
Great, thanks, Damon. Sass, appreciate you having us. Like Damon said, we're super excited to be both on the panel and also to be joining Ohio's efforts in the near future. So Kitty Hawk has been around a while. We were the first mover in the eVTOL space. We've been working on eVTOL for over 10 years. We've prototyped and flown over 150 different aircraft designs across 3 major lines, and you can see the evolution as from a pure lift fan like the Flyer platform to fixed lift with a pusher prop that spun off in a joint venture with Boeing, our core aircraft that's now called part of Wisk. And then our heavy side program is the latest iteration of that, which is a tilt rotor. So heavy side itself as a program is pretty young. We started in 2018, but it builds on all the accumulated knowledge of those platforms that come before us. It's fast, it's small, it's extremely quiet. We share the same vision as many people on this panel of using that platform to bring aviation across a much broader spectrum of the public and just to make it much more available. And we're confident that heavy side's the platform that can do that.
Outstanding. No, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. And man, it looks pretty nice outside there. So that's something that I'm missing. And finally, yeah, Nathan. Nathan, talk to us about Hyundai Motor Group and specifically, air mobility, right? And how long you guys have been working on that, and what got you there?
Sure. Well, thank you so much. And I'd like to start by saying we're so thankful to be here and encouraged by the incredible progress and leadership that we've seen so far in Ohio. So we've been in this space for about 2 years now, and many people know Hyundai from our cars, but Hyundai is really, we've always seen ourselves as a mobility company. We've always taken a very human-centered approach towards mobility. We see advanced air mobility as a big part of this future of mobility and connectivity. And we see it as a very important way to reduce the burden on current infrastructure, reduce traffic congestion, promote equity of access, and increase the use of green renewable energy in transportation, as well as promoting a transportation model that could substantially increase the overall quality of life for many people. And we're very much looking forward to continuing to develop these technologies and to do so in Ohio and as a partner to Ohio.
Outstanding. No, thank you, Nathan. And really, thank you all for being here. Right, this is a very impressive panel with an amazing group of industries helping us out. We had a lot of questions we want to get through, right, and we want to hear a lot of different things. So we're going to start right off, right, and I'm going to throw this one to you first, Luke. And then maybe Nathan for some follow-up. But, when we think of the concept of a flying car, right, sometimes people think about Back to the Future, or they think about the Jetsons, but let's talk about reality, right? Can you help Ohio residents understand, right, just what's the potential for something like this? And really a better way of asking that maybe is what is this going to look like for the average citizen? So Luke, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, great question, and I always chuckle a little bit when I hear the term "flying car." Although not a super fan of that term, I think it resonates well with people. As we look back for what it means for the daily commute and the daily citizen, I think it's important also to characterize this with the fact this will be an evolutionary thing that we're doing. It'll be the crawl, walk, run approach to get there. We're not going to go from, no quote unquote flying cars to thousands over various cities. This will be a very deliberate approach with safety on the forefront. But when we look at major cities, if you look at even cities like Dayton, which traffic can be problems, but when you look at some of the mega cities and their growth throughout the next decade to 2 decades, cities, and one mega cities being cities that have more than 10 million people, are just getting more numerous. And what we've done as a world population is designed a 2D transportation system where there's only a finite amount of cars you can put on a road. So the natural evolution is to elevate that, no pun intended, from the work that Uber Elevate did, but put this into a three-dimensional space. And over the last, decade or so, there's been technologies and advancements and, more importantly, innovation partnered with the DoD side that have allowed these technologies to come to market. That's why you see the various companies up here, what it looks like. And, we've experimented with this for many years, with the folks at Joby, about the concept of being able to push a button and get a flight, and making that accessible through scale to the daily person, to the average citizen, as you mentioned. So we just want this to be a natural evolution of how people move within cities and how they view aviation. And I think it's, Kevin hit on a little bit, the joy of flight, bringing that to the masses, because all of us that have flown in the air and taken controls of an aircraft know that it's pretty special, and to give a little bit of that experience on a daily basis that people can realize it's for them, I think will be pretty magical. So that's what we look forward to, I think, as an industry, for making it happen.
Outstanding. Again, joy of flight, right? I mean, all of us share that. In fact, I've got a son right now kind of going through, commercial multi-engine type stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of excitement that a lot of people are happy about seeing this come down the line. Nathan, any other thoughts from your side on, again, what this technology is really going to do for the average citizen?
Sure. So we actually get that Jetsons reference quite a lot. However, when you watch the Jetsons, you see people piloting their own vehicles. But our vision of advanced air mobility has a lot more in common with maybe like an urban metro system, just one that utilizes aerial transportation routes instead of terrestrial ones. So instead of an exclusive model of transportation or mode of transportation that only a select few will have access to, although this technology is very innovative and cutting edge, we see and envision the ecosystem in Ohio as one that's equitable and accessible to everyone. So just to add to what Luke said, for your average citizen in Ohio, we see them as being able to utilize these vehicles to commute to work or to school on a frequent basis. And for this technology to really add to the connectivity of transit systems, not necessarily replace any of them, all while reducing carbon emissions and congestion. And it's also important to add that while this will increase connectivity in urban areas and urban suburban areas, we see a great potential in Ohio to add connectivity in rural areas as well.
No, outstanding. Well, let's stay on that topic, right, of Ohio, and specifically, right, Springfield, Ohio. I'm going to start with you, Arlo, and then we'll roll over to Kevin. But talk to us about, hey, what are you up to right now with the Air Force and Agility Prime, specifically over at Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, which again is just east of Wright-Patterson and Dayton. So, Arlo, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Sass. Well, what's going on in Ohio is really visionary, kind of like the Agility Prime program. And, when the Wright brothers were at Huffman Prairie, I think they were probably largely operating alone. But for this industry to thrive, it's really, it's a team effort. So everybody on this panel, the whole industry needs to pull together: academia, government, Air Force, all need to pull together to make it a reality, because the technology is basically there, but there's a lot of details that we need to work out together. So Ohio, I believe, and the Springfield location is enabled. We have a simulation facility there that we're using to really demonstrate the technology. Also a charging facility that we're going to put to work here that's both ground and air vehicles, and it'll be a prototype vertiport will be installed there before long. And so all the initiatives that have been described today in Ohio are really going to enable this industry. So we've got a beachhead there next to AFRL, and hope to continue the work.
Nope, outstanding. Thanks, Arlo. Hey, Kevin, I'll throw that over to you. How about you guys, Lyft and Springfield, and your relationship there?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. So we are pursuing an SBIR right now, as I mentioned in the prior talk. In Springfield, we delivered the first production eVTOL aircraft to the Air Force in Springfield. And just to that point, for the folks on the panel and in the larger industry, the term we've been hearing really is co-opetition, right? The notion that, we succeed together, we fly together, or we don't. And I think one of the beautiful things about being in Springfield is being close to companies like Beta and Joby, having those resources there allows us to expand the flight envelope more quickly and safely. One of the things we're cognizant of is that given our, and I love the point that Luke brought up, this natural evolution, given our limited flight profile, we are able to fly with folks, with the public sooner. So one of the things we're doing in Ohio is a public use demonstration that's part of the flight test plan we have going on for first response uses for aircraft. And then also expanding the flight envelope and doing some wacky and wild stuff with AFRL. So we've got kind of a couple different elements in Ohio and are excited to have aircraft there and to be continuing to invest in that partnership and that relationship.
No, perfect. No, outstanding. I mean, again, you talk about AFRL, right, and a lot of the research that goes on here, in the Dayton area. In fact, just yesterday at Springfield, we had some visitors from the Air Force Test Center that were out there, right? So there's a lot of interest from the R&D, right, the research and development perspective on what's happening. This is an R&D panel, right? So let's talk about R&D and specifically technology gaps, right? And for this one, I'm going to start with you, Matt, if you don't mind, and I'll probably throw it over then to Arlo also. But let's talk about maybe some of the major technology gaps that you all are seeing, right, from a developmental and a performance perspective. So Matt, what are you? Any thoughts on the tech gaps there?
Yeah, so I guess what jumps out at me is the biggest thing is that instead of tech gaps, what I see mostly is gaps in regulation. Figuring out exactly how we can take these new technologies and either adapt regulations to them or develop new regulations that accommodate them. So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle. But to directly address your question, I think one of the biggest things will be as we scale this industry, the need for air traffic control is obviously going to greatly increase beyond the ability of voice-to-voice, pilot to controller to handle that. So the automation of air traffic control to allow scaled operations in a congested area, I think is probably one of the biggest challenges. Obviously, battery technology, it's not necessarily a gap in that it's not prohibitive now, but as we continue to improve on our battery technology, those improvements will decrease the costs, enable more widespread and efficient networks. So as batteries get better, we can increase our range, we can decrease the charge times, we can decrease the number of times we need to charge, and all those things will combine just to make the networks more efficient and more accessible to a greater number of people.
No, outstanding. And man, I appreciate that, right? Because again, a lot of times when we talk about innovation, especially with new technology sectors, right? A lot of times the terms, right, that we use sometimes aren't necessarily applicable. And gaps is probably a great one. We love to use the term tech gaps traditionally, but maybe, like you said, this is not necessarily the right term for what you guys are all seeing, because you guys are all having success moving forward. So Arlo, I'll throw then the same type question at you. I'm going to change it then. Instead of tech gaps, right? Maybe what are some technology challenges that you guys are seeing, either with you or just across the industry?
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, that's what Matt said. Obviously, we completely agree. And I think everybody on the panel here has had some success, like you say, with experimental aircraft and demonstrating the potential and the viability of electric propulsion and battery energy storage and on an experimental basis. So it's, again, kind of like was said, like Matthew was saying, that to turn the experimental into a product and a certifiable and something you can manufacture and deploy at scale depends a lot on the time and space that we need to prove the reliabilities of the new technology and the regulatory environment to get there. So it's, I think the basic technologies are there. The things like spectrum for future ops and command and control of the airspace are absolutely still, I would say, gaps. But again, those are more regulatory too, in terms of assigning spectrum to these kind of vehicles and things of that nature. So I asked my certification engineers this, and it's really the time and space to work, because we think the technology is imminent, and I think everybody would say the same.
No, thanks, Arlo, and I appreciate that too. Right, a lot of times the technology is there, and now we're playing catch up with regulations and guidance that may be decades or more older. Right, so certainly a challenge there. Hey, I'm going to bring up Nathan next. Right, let's swap over to communities. Right, so we talked a little bit about about the average citizen, but what can Ohio communities do, right, to kind of rally around this technology, the technology that we say is ready to go, it's there. What can they do to help support, right, the advancement and the integration into society?
Right. So we think that what's really important right now in order for Ohio communities to rally around this technology is for communities and community stakeholders to really work with industry to help us identify the gaps in current transit networks. So help identify opportunities to integrate these AAM capabilities into current and future transit networks. Local communities are going to know the gaps in their connectivity far better than anyone else, and certainly far better than industry. So we think that there's a real role for industry to be a partner with communities, and communities also to help let us know what the gaps are so that this technology can best meet the needs of those communities and fill those gaps.
No, outstanding. Luke, I'm going to throw this one at you as well. Thoughts on, again, what can these Ohio communities do, right, as this technology has come around to help integrate it, get excited about it, and get it to be actually a part of their society?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think communities are so key in the term community acceptance, and what that really means is communities welcoming this and viewing the potential, and what I talked about earlier about this will be for the everyday citizen. And that's the success for all of these companies on the line here is to have that integration with the community, create jobs, create opportunity, because just like when the automobile was being created, no one really knew what the full use cases are, and that's where we're at in this industry, where we're not 100% sure we know each use case outside of cargo and personnel transportation. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think those opportunities come with the communities in the dialogue back and forth about the needs for this, and building those vehicles and the specifications to integrate and be a part of the communities, as opposed to forcing this on the communities. Joby specifically takes the community acceptance, and I know the others do as well, very important, and noise being a primary factor for how we're building this vehicle and how we're designing it, because that is a common complaint for anyone who's flown a helicopter over a large urban environment. That's one of the biggest faults, is the noise barrier. So I think one of the things the community can do is welcome it and adopt it as a new technology that's going to bring opportunities from the dense urban environments to the rural environments.
Outstanding, thanks, Lou. In fact, you hit on a couple of big ones, right? Noise, trust, right? Those are all things that certainly we'll have to deal with as challenges. So let's talk about major challenges, right? And Kevin, I'll start with you, and then we'll roll it over to Matt. But talk to me about then what do you see, right? Take a step back, the big picture, major challenges to progress, not necessarily just for you and your company, right, but for this industry as a whole. And by the way, over in the poll right now, if you want to take a look, we have a poll for those of you who are listening in about a topic just like this. So Kevin, I'll start with you. Thoughts on major challenges, right, to this industry?
I think I would build on what Luke was saying. I asked at Oshkosh 2019, there was a panel not unlike this. And I asked the panel, look, in 50 years, we all know this is reality, right? Clearly the technology is at a workable level now. It'll improve, it's imminent. In 50 plus years, this has happened, totally. But the question was, what stops it happening in the next 20 years, 10 to 20 years? And the answer universally across the board, from folks from FAA, other companies, Uber Elevate, of course, was community acceptance, right? This notion that people won't understand it, that they will say, no, not in my backyard, not today, not here. And so the counter to some of that fear that I know we all have, that we all share, is to introduce people to it, to help people understand what this is. So I would say the challenge that I would focus on more than anything, because look, humanity has perfected safety, maybe not perfected, but established levels of safety on all kinds of technology, aircraft included. And it hasn't been easy, and it's been painful, and there will be failures along the way, but we've gotten there, right? Homes have electricity. We take 737s on a flight and know that in 2017, the odds in the developed world of having a fatal incident on a 737 were zero. It was far more dangerous to walk across the street. So I think with the safety piece and the technology piece, those are broad scale challenges. I think the X factor ultimately is community acceptance. And so, we're cognizant of when people see the aircraft, we want them, and not just our aircraft, but others as well, we want them to get to know that, to get to understand it, right? We already have very noisy vehicles in our environment. We have helicopters and we have motorcycles. Motorcycles are far louder than these aircraft, especially up close. And we accept those, we understand those. And motorcycles are also far more dangerous than I hope any of this technology will be, right? But helping the community understand really what does it look like, not just from a risk profile, but from a profile of how will this impact my life? There will be challenges, especially early on, but also what are those benefits? Helping them understand that, bringing them in.
Outstanding. No, thank you, Kevin. Matt, I'll throw that your way too. Thoughts on, again, major challenges that we're facing out there as this industry moves forward?
Yeah, so I'll agree completely with everything that Kevin just said on a macro level, and maybe focus in a little bit more on the operational or granular level of, we get the big picture. We need community acceptance. We need to save people time, but we need to quantify that. We need to build networks that can save people a substantial amount of time over making the drive and do it at an affordable price. And that requires scaling, bringing the cost of production and operations down to where they're comparable, and people aren't just going to default to taking their POV or their privately owned vehicle, their car, their motorcycle. And then I think the next challenge is, how do you certify that? As we go through the various certification paths for aircraft and helicopters and UAS, how do you synthesize those into a single certification path that will support this industry? This is certainly not my quote. I'm stealing it from one of our customer discoveries. I was speaking with a former airline pilot turned surgeon who was talking us through how he would set up a medical transport network. And I loved something that he said. He goes, I want the level of effort, the amount of thought that you give to using this product should be the thought that you give to getting in an elevator, not getting in a helicopter. And I thought that was really succinct. So if you think between where we are now on the experimental side and getting to the point where you get in an elevator and push a button, I think the myriad challenges that go into that with some very operational specifics is what we can focus on. And the good thing is that so many of us, through engagement with ODOT, with GAMA, with other organizations, are providing a unified voice on what we want to see. That ties us back to the community involvement. It's much easier to get the things that we need from regulators when we have a community push for it rather than an industry pull. So just to tie back to that other question, between challenges and community, the communities can really help us by letting their elected representatives, by letting their regulators know, hey, this is something we want, we're excited about it, and it really does help us do what we want to do.
No, outstanding. No, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. And really, I appreciate all of you, right? Tell you what, we've got about, I think, 10 minutes or so. So why don't we switch, right, from the panel over to maybe some Q&A, right? We've had a couple questions that have come in earlier. We've got a ton of questions online. And I think I saw the message that said, hey, if we don't get to all the questions, here is our plan, right? Our plan is we will send these questions out. We will get answers, and we will get the answers back to you here kind of, post the session, right? So we appreciate really everybody's interest. There's a lot of things coming out here on the Q&A as well as what we got beforehand. So probably the first one, here's a good Q&A, and here's what I'll do. I'll throw it out, and then I'll open it up, right? And we'll see who wants to start. And again, let's keep the answers somewhat succinct, and that way we can kind of see if we can hit hit as many of these as we can, or at least a couple of them. So let's talk first, right, about, and somebody brought it up before, right, but all 5 of you are here, all 5 of you are smiling, right, and being friendly. But let's talk, is this collaboration, competition, or something in between? And I think I heard actually somebody coin a term, right, for so something in between competition and collaboration, right? So I'll just I'll throw it out to Kevin here first, right here on the top of my screen. What do you see that this industry is? Collaboration, competition, or somewhere in between?
At the Texas Up Conference in late 2019, we heard it called co-opetition. The idea that we really have to work together, right? It's not a kind of a cutthroat market or what have you, right? It's, well, what did you learn? Okay, and so I'd like to think of it more like, say you're in a college or grad school taking an engineering class. At the end of the day, everyone has their own grade, but we want each other to succeed, right? A rising tide really does raise all boats. This is not a fixed pie. This is not a winner-take-all situation. This is a 10, 15 years down the line, a long-term game where I hope the people on this panel, I hope the other companies on this panel are not only still around, but they're doing well, so we can continue to work together.
No, outstanding. Love it, man. I do. Hey, from the Q&A, and Arlo, I'll throw this one your way. It says, can you speak to the speed possibilities? Are we going to be able to cross the country at 500 miles an hour, right? So just how about in general, can you just give us a general thought on, on what you see speed-wise, kind of down the line?
Well, in general, we're going to be making improvements incrementally, I would say. And I think crossing the country is going to take us a little while to get to. And, again, it's going to be a stepwise approach. So I can't really speak to the ultimate potential of crossing the country.
No, understood and agreed, right? But obviously a lot of potential out there, and like you said, as this technology matures, right, and as all these things keep going forward, I think we'll be impressed with what we're seeing out there. So we got one on rotor noise, right, and thoughts on kind of just noise in general. So Kevin, I'll throw that one your way when we're talking about just noise and dB levels.
We're quieter. We're much quieter than a helicopter. We're also a single seat. I think one of the big questions will be for folks approach paths and how loud can it be on approach? How long are you on approach, especially when it comes to those air taxi use cases that I know folks are focused on. For us, we're looking at starting with first response and getting a ton of data from that. I would actually love to hear from the other panelists what their thoughts are on noise.
Yeah, no, outstanding. Luke, thoughts on your side on noise, right? Because I know that's a big one for you.
Yeah, noise is, I think, one of the most important things that manufacturers of the present day and then the future need to take into consideration. It's about that integration with the community, because noise is going to be one of the biggest blockers. Joby, as I mentioned before, has taken a tremendous amount of effort to design a vehicle that is not only fast, and I'll hit on that previous question too. We're advertising around 200 miles an hour, efficient, but also very quiet. For those that haven't seen it, you can go on YouTube, look up a video that Joby just posted with our CEO, and we demonstrated it pretty effectively, where the vehicle is taking off as Joe Ben is talking. I think that's a very important factor, and it gets very real to what the level of noise of these vehicles needs to be, and only getting quieter from there as future developments take into consideration how to just improve on it. So yeah, I believe noise, if manufacturers aren't designing with noise as a forefront, that could be some challenges ahead.
No, perfect. Thanks. How about, let's see, let me get Matt, I'm going to throw one your way, right? How about, you want to talk in general about maybe some challenges for when it's time to scale up, right? What are some things that might be an issue? Again, whether it's for you guys at Kitty Hawk, or really just across the industry as we're talking about scaling?
Yeah, so obviously we'll competing with the EV industry for batteries. So I think as this market scales, what you'll see is manufacturers will recognize that and start to join. So I think bridging that gap between now and full scale essentially finding sources that can buy us the time for industry to recognize that not only is this a viable solution, but it's one that we need domestic supplies for. You know, right now the U.S. is one of the largest exporters of aircraft in the world. We've got a hugely efficient and effective industry producing those parts. Ohio obviously has played a huge part in that, and you know, I think, like you said, supply chain will be a challenge, but we've got great success stories in that area, and I'm confident that as we demonstrate that, hey, we can build these aircraft, we can get through the regulations of the aircraft, and we can build effective networks, that those supply chains will follow with that.
No, outstanding. Hey, Nathan, here's one for you. We talked a little bit, right, about guidance and regulations, but obviously the FAA has kind of, changes, right? Things change, not necessarily rapidly, right? But certainly now with small drones, things like that. You have to deal with changing guidance, changing regulations. So talk to us. That was one of the questions we got earlier, right? Was how does that affect your way of doing business when you're dealing with an ever-changing regulatory environment?
Sure. I mean, that one thing that I'll say is that we're very encouraged by the progress that we've seen thus far by the FAA, and I think it's just upon industry to make sure that we're a part of that process, right? There's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done to enable this industry from a regulatory level by the FAA, and it's just important that industry remains a part of that. In addition to that, and I'll just touch on this quickly, it's important that the work that we're doing at the state and local level, specifically in Ohio, not only complements this, but really adds to the work that's being done. So much of the work and the data that's coming from the state and local level will really help inform what's going on at the federal level. So it's important that the work that's being done at both levels is very harmonized.
No, outstanding. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So tell you what, I'm just going to open this one up to the panel, whoever would like to answer, right? So there are a lot of questions, right, about technology, right? Because this is, in fact, an RD panel. I fully recognize, right, that we are not going to get into some information, but the question is, what are some things that maybe you see kind of either from a sense and avoid perspective, or from a supporting technology on the ground perspective, like comms or infrastructure. What do you see there that either is in the works or is going to be a pretty big technology input for us going forward with this industry? So, anybody want to take that one without me calling you out specifically?
Yeah, I'll start off. I'll just comment that I'd like to applaud the efforts of Ohio in conjunction with the Air Force Research Lab and the airspace that they've built around Springfield and the plans that they have for the corridors around Dayton and Columbus. That's the exact type of thing that we need to start proving out remote piloting, eventually getting the pilots out of these aircraft and being able to scale. So, having federal and state level partners like we do through Ohio and AFRL is hugely enabling to everybody here. And I think that's, where Kevin mentioned a rising tide lifting all the boats, that those efforts are going to be rewarded, tenfold just by the fact that they're applicable across.
No, perfect. So tell you what, I think we are just about out of time. So let me close by number one saying, man, seriously, thank you, right, to all of you for being here. Thanks for your interest, not just in Ohio and what's going on in Ohio, but more so, thanks for your interest and really for your work and what you're doing for this industry. I think of all this, the thing that I walk away with the most appreciation for is just all of your willingness, right, to all work together to make sure that we as an industry can succeed here, especially just seeing all the different value propositions that this type of technology can bring to the country and really bring to the world as well. Hey, for everybody listening in, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this. Please click over on the poll. You'll see a poll question that says, moving forward, where does this technology sector, advanced air mobility, need the most support? You've got a couple options there. What we'll do is we will get those poll results out. We will get the Q&As out that we didn't get to. And then I am going to turn it back over to Matt and say, hey, thanks for letting us be a part of your day today.
Thank you, Sass, and thank you to the absolutely robust discussion that we had with all the panelists, and thanks for the time. Provided a plethora of ideas for future research projects, highlighted the importance of community engagement and the noise factor, and also the efforts across Ohio and the nation to get this effort moving. So thank you all. Now we'll break for about 5 minutes, or maybe just 2, because we'll start back up at 3:35. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.